Yeah, hello everybody. So thank you very much for coming here. Also for the people online. Initially we weren't going to run this online. We will do the morning session such because of like popular requests of people that really couldn't attend. And also some people that were going to give parts of the tutorials. So there's a lot of people that came from Italy, from the Netherlands, from Karlsruhe, who is like as far away as that. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And let's see if we can have a productive somehow workshop. So what is going to happen is we will go through the program afterwards, but first we will give some kind of introduction in here why we're doing this as an overarching thing. We hope that more or less you have heard what NOMAD is. So this will skip like all the fair data thing and all of that. So we'll go directly to the points. I will share this presentation with Hampus, which is like in the back in there. He will give like a couple of the slides in here. And then we will move on with some talks. And then I just go through the program later on. So I hope everybody online can also hear as well. So I send an email to the people to try to join the Discord channel. So the reason why we want to have the questions and all the help in there is because it's a little bit more permanent. So if we run things in the Zoom chat, it doesn't work. And in there, it allows us like a lot of more people like to try to help online and so on. So if you know answers of what people ask in there or feel that you could help, just like also please contribute. This is all about community stuff. So basically NOMAD is a software that we develop somehow in this building in one corridor that is up in there where the coffee machines are. We will go later on in there. And there's like a lot of people working behind this. There's a project called FAIRmat, a consortium called FAIRmat, where like around 30 people work in there. And what the main activities is to develop this NOMAD ecosystem. We do many more things and so on. And then NOMAD comes with like put it like in somehow like two kind of flavors. So one is the central archive and repository, which is what is represented in this left part of the slide in there. And this is something that it has like a lot of legacy. So this was launched in 2014 as an archive and repository for DFT data, for ab initio calculations data. And people still use it. It's very popular. So we also use it to put some databases and so on. And this is something that we maintain, we produce, and it's our central installation. And then with the years, so we saw that like experimentalist groups, like most of the ones in here, they needed something that they could like install, and they put like a lot of privacy and customization in that. So what we did is like make NOMAD customizable and installable, and this is what we like mainly work on. And this is what we call NOMAD Oasis. So this is basically a private installation that you can take, and then some of you already have an installation. So I need to give a little bit of background to some people that might not know what NOMAD is. And today we will mainly be talking about NOMAD Oasis customization and applications and so on. And then I said that I think that the best thing that we can do is just to go more or less through some of the main features of NOMAD and what you can do with it, and then navigate through how people are using this in some use cases. So yeah, the first thing is that you can convert it somehow into an ELN, an electronic laboratory notebook. So you can basically create these forms. This is a mock-up one for a solar cell where you can have, for example, a free text-rich editor in there. Then you can just plug data that is very structured and highly controlled in there. You can manually change these things. It comes with unit control so that the data like has a lot of like well-defined and structured way. You can retrieve it programmatically and so on. You can actually build a lot of like automation pipelines. For example, you can instruct your NOMAD installation. Okay, every time that I receive an EQE that it has like wavelength intensity values, I just want you like to read it, then plot it, but also do like a lot of data augmentation pipelines. For example, I want to derive the band gap from the CQE, integrate the short circuit current density in there, feed like an URBAC tail to the exponential decay and so on. And then everything fine there? Yeah. And then of course, like this data gets a structure and then gets like processed in a very consistent way every time that somebody like uploads an EQE and so on. So this is just an example. You can do this with whatever you want. Then NOMAD is a file-based system. So imagine that NOMAD as Dropbox thing, but it's like somehow augmented for material science and for data science and so on. So what we're bringing is like a lot of support for large files. So a lot of measurements are multidimensional these days and so on. And then you need to store like a huge amount of intercorrelated arrays. So we're putting a lot of support for HDF5 like type of formats, both in storage, but also in like streamlining the data and visualization and so on. And then there is North. North stands for NOMAD Remote Tool Hub, and this is where you interact with NOMAD as an analysis component. So you have your files in NOMAD, your entries in NOMAD, and then what North does, it allows you to customize your analysis environments. And this could be like a Jupyter Hub that you can like run Jupyter notebooks, and then you can see the data in these notebooks that you have access to. You can completely customize these environments to whatever you need, the packages that you need, and so on. But this could be any kind of software. It could also be desktop tools. So it could be image analysis software. For example, this is Fiji, which is like an advanced version of ImageJ. Or it could be Igor Pro. It could even be Origin if you wanted to do this. I hope you don't want to do this. But the point is you can run these desktop tools directly online. So it will spin in the browser, and then you have access to all the files that you have access in NOMAD. And I think we will see a lot of examples of people running stuff with Jupyter-based containers. Then it looks like this, and then you can see like the different tools that you have in your different installation and so on. So the whole point is that when you do the analysis in NOMAD, let's imagine that you do some image analysis. I think the Karlsruhe people do a lot of that. So when you save your analysis and your files save also directly in NOMAD. And then this avoids you to having to like download really big files in your laptop, then do some analysis, share it with somebody else. So everything just happens in the browser, and then you don't need to start like downloading, uploading, sharing, and this kind of stuff. And a couple of the last features is like search apps. So this is what we call like a database in a database. NOMAD is a database, but you can just build like faceted search. So you can build dashboards that allow you to look data in a like very, let's put it like this, customizable way. So this is an example about a database for thermally activated delay fluorescent molecules in there, where we put certain filters about the photoluminescence decay, also the delayed lifetime or the peak of the emission wavelength, or where it peaks and so on. But this you can do with whatever you want. We will see some examples there. And of course, you can share your data very privately and very selectively. So you can decide, OK, I'm the main author of this upload. Upload is a root folder in NOMAD. And I want to share this with Sartak in here, who will be a co-author of this upload. So he will also have edit rights in here. And with Julia, will be a reviewer that I can see all the files in there, can download them, but cannot modify them or change anything in there. And on top of that, you can also create users groups now. So you can create groups that contains like a certain amount of people, and then you just like share selectively in there. And I think with this, I hand on to Hampus, who will talk us a little bit now about how we can customize on NOMAD Oasis.
Okay, yeah. So I'm part of the FAIRmat team, right? So I work on the use cases and also a little bit on the synthesis area and do a little bit of everything. And like Pepe said, with the Oasis, you're allowed to customize a lot of things, right? So NOMAD has a Python backend, which is very flexible. It allows you to do a lot of different things, but you somehow need to inject your code into there to automate these things. Like if you saw, for example, Pepe uploaded an EQE and we extracted the URBAC energy. Somewhere there needs to be some code that calculates this URBAC energy, right? And the way we do this is what we call NOMAD plugins. So NOMAD plugins is a way to pluginize your code and just submit it into the NOMAD source code. And this is designed to be like in a modular and flexible way so that you can customize and also in a collaborative way where other people can reuse the work that you have done so that not everyone has to customize over and over again, right? We have some different types of plugins that you can develop for your NOMAD Oasis. So the first are what we call schema packages. So this is what allows you to create the data models for the data that you're putting in there. It also allows you to define electronic lab notebooks, so forms that for the users to fill in. So this is really the core functionality, the core backbone. And the second thing of this is the parsers. So if you want to have automatic file detection so that you can just drop a file into the NOMAD Dropbox, as Pepe mentioned, and have it picked up and automatically fill a data schema, then you write a little parser which does all of this. And then the third one of the big three, I would say, is the app. So this is the search app that Pepe was showing. So if you want to have a custom dashboard which visualizes the properties that you are interested in, right? So for PV that might be like a power conversion efficiency or whatever it is, right? You want to have special plots, special ways of searching and filtering your data. Then you do this in these apps, and those are not. You don't need to do much code in there, right? It's more a configuration plugin, right? You just set up what columns you want to show and what sort of things. But you can, in principle, also inject code there if you need to calculate something or things like this. And then we have also, you can do some example uploads and normalizers, but these are, I guess, less used ones. These are the three main ones, and the three main ones that we will be tackling this afternoon and also tomorrow morning in our hands-on workshop. We will get our hands on some of these and writing our own NOMAD plugins and developing and deploying our own NOMAD Oasis. And here's just a little brief overview. It's a bit outdated now. I think this is from February this year, about how many NOMAD plugins are out there, right? So at that point there was 127 public plugins. There are also some private ones in private repositories on GitHub. There are also some other plugins that are on GitLab installations somewhere where I don't have access to them. But these are the ones that I found on GitHub. And only around 50 of them are developed by us at FAIRmat, right? So this means that there's a lot of community engagement here. So a lot of the people who are sitting in this room have also contributed with writing plugins, and also other people around Germany, but also around the world contributed to these. And you see that most of them here are parsers and schema packages, and there are some apps, and then some normalized and example uploads. And it's really an ongoing development that's happening here. Yeah. So how do you now get started with NOMAD, right? So you want to do the plugin, you want to get going, you want to set up an Oasis. It might get a little bit confusing, right? There's a lot of different levels, a lot of different entry points. So what I like to do is I like to split it up a little bit into some different roles or different user groups. And this doesn't mean that you have to fit perfectly into one of these, right? You're probably on some spectrum. But on the very basic level, I like to say that we have a user, right? And this user is just someone who wants to use NOMAD. And maybe that is not the people who are coming to the workshop about customizing a PV Oasis, but that's probably the people back at your institutes who later on, when you have deployed something, you want them to use NOMAD. You want them to upload their data into NOMAD and just use the automation that is already there, right? So here we're talking about things like uploading data sets, searching for them, and use already defined applications, right? And this you can do just in the central NOMAD, and you can also do it on a configured NOMAD Oasis, right? But this is like the first level, right? And here you don't need to know anything about Python programming or how the data model works or anything like this, right? It's more of using the graphical user interface on this level. And then on the second level, I like to say that we have something called an application administrator, right? And that's probably more of the people who I think are sitting in this room. And these are people who implement the data schemas, maybe reuse data schemas from other places, configure what they want people to use and what they don't want people to use, and also set up this automation that might be needed, right? So that if someone drops a file, it gets parsed, plots get created and things like this, right? And we do this through these NOMAD plugins, right? So this is heavily working with the NOMAD plugins. And then on the third level, we have what I would call a system administrator. And this is the person who is in charge of your actual NOMAD deployment, right? And this could even be someone at your IT, right? At an institute or your level. It doesn't necessarily need to be you. And the important thing here is that we aim to disjoint these things so that it can be run by someone who doesn't know any detail about the domain that you're working in. Because often at universities, the IT are a little bit sensitive about what they let you do and so on with their servers and so on. And it might be that you don't have the right to do some of these things that they need you to do. So we have set it up in a way where you can configure everything in your NOMAD Oasis on an application administrator level. You can set up everything. What plugins do you want? How do you want them to work? And everything like this. And what the system administrator administrator needs to do is only to set up the Docker containers, make sure that the server is running, setting up the backup, doing all of these things, right? But these are still important tasks that relate to the running of the NOMAD Oasis. So now I'll just go through some of the tasks. We have until 10 or for this.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we start on the first level here now where this thing is, maybe we can close this one. No. Yes. And this one. Okay, good. So if you're just on this user level and you just want to use the central Oasis, right? Then I think the first and absolutely easiest thing, so I'm trying to go sort of in order of complexity here, is that you just go to Nomad Lab, right? Without the password or without the user or without anything, you can just go to Nomad already and start to explore the data that is already there. So this is the central archive. This is sort of the easiest thing. The second thing is that you can use what is already built in Nomad. You can just drop a file if you have, especially if you have DFT codes. I think we support most of the ones that are out there, so that you can just drop the files in Nomad and they get parsed automatically, right? And you can then publish data if you want. Maybe you want to have a publication, you want to share this data, then you can publish the data and get a DOI for the data. And this works even though you haven't used any of the standard parsers, right? If you just want to use it as a Zenodo Dropbox, you can still do that, right? You can publish it and you can do that. But the fun things comes later on, right? When we recognize the data. What you can also do is you can use our built-in electronic lab notebook. So we have a couple of built-in features, very simple features, where you have like a sample, or maybe you have a measurement or things like this. There are some built-in features that you can use. But then what you can also do is that you can write custom YAML schemas, or custom schemas, we call them. So just in a little config file, you can say that you want to take this general measurement electronic lab notebook, and you want to add a couple of fields in there. You want to say, in my measurement, I want to track this quantity, and I want to track this this whatever property it could be. You can then do this with these custom schemas. So we have some tutorials on this in the Nomad docs. And then you can open this North that Pepe talked about to analyze your data. So we have a Jupyter Notebook or Jupyter Hub that you can run in there. So you can use Python notebooks or Julia or R or whatever you want. And you can directly analyze the data that you have uploaded into Nomad on our cloud service, right? So without having to run it on your computer. And then finally, we have a very rich API where you can query all of this data that you have uploaded, right? So that you can build maybe more advanced pipelines, maybe using the North, or maybe you do it somewhere else, to query data and aggregate data and do things like this. And here we also have something called AI Toolkit that you can use, where there are some examples of how you can set up some AI workflows. Okay, but that was using sort of as a user. But perhaps what is more interesting for us is the no, maybe now I have to click here because I was clicking around. Is the plugin system, right? So what you can do with the plugins, and I think the basic thing you can do is that you can look at the existing plugins that are out there. So what are the plugins that already exist? And I can show you a little bit later when we do the demo in the afternoon, where you can find an aggregated list of all of these plugins. And then you can, of course, develop plugins. And this here is where we aim to start this afternoon, if you want to join for the hands-on workshop. So we will really dive into how do you develop a plugin, how do you use these templates that are available, and the cookie cutter templates to create all the code that you need, and how can you then set up these schema packages for automation and custom plots, the parsers for reading and matching files, and also the apps for the dashboards and so on. And then finally, we have the NOMAD Oasis here, and I will mention a little bit about this as well. So if someone is interested to look into this, we can also do that as a test. It is definitely possible to do it on your own, but then also we might need to have a conversation later when you go back to your institute, because it also does depend a little bit on, even though it's Dockerized, it can depend a little bit on your environment where you are, what the IT has set up in terms of firewalls and things like this, right? But the simplest thing here is to just use the default Nomad as it is, but then you of course want to customize it, your image with plugins. So I will at least show in the afternoon how you can do this customization, and then you can also create your own North images. You can play around with a file system to mount existing drives and do all of these sort of things to make sure you don't copy data over and things like this. And then you could even customize the user management if you want to use an existing key cloak on the university or things like this. Although we do now also support something called Helmut's AI, which allows you to use an overarching European-wide at this point authentication system, which I would highly recommend. Yeah, but I think that's it in terms of these things. So I would just again like to say that please join the NOMAD Discord chat if you haven't done this already. So we will have the questions for the whole tutorial in there, in this what was the channel called?
Solar energy, I think.
Yeah. Solar energy or something like this. Yep. And this is really the best way to get help once you then also get back to your institutes. You want to do some more work on this. Here you get response very quickly, and not only from the people who are working directly at FAIRmat, but also from other users who help each other out. So it's really something that's been very, very successful. Yeah, and then I don't know, do you want to say something about the use cases, Pepe?
And yeah, so what I wanted to show is like really very randomly, like a couple of use cases of how people use NOMAD in general or NOMAD Oasis, hoping to be inspirational for some other new people and to use it as an introduction of what's coming afterwards. So the first people using NOMAD is, of course, ourselves, right? So we use the central installation to try to distribute databases. And in there, for example, we have the perovskite solar cell database in there that you can explore. This is data created from the literature, from papers manually created in there. And then we put like a new interface that allows you to search for solar cells with like plenty of filters. You can tell, okay, I want to look for solar cells that have like this ETL in particular, and the perovskite material contains tin and has like a given cation and so on. And we keep on like trying to upgrade this database, like augment the data to make it like more searchable and better. And we're working very heavily now in trying to update it in terms of entries, that we have like a lot of updated papers, and I think this will happen in the next couple of months. Like this, there are plenty of other databases. We put one recently about ions for hybrid perovskite. So if anybody's interested in there are more than 300 ions that you can filter by their size or the number of atoms and so on. So if you work in some 2D cupping layers or something like this, it might be helpful to get some sources of what you can put in there. And then there's some people in completely different fields. This is the DTU Nanolab. This is led by Andrea Crovetto. And they also work in energy materials, but not in hybrid perovskites or CIGS or in tandems or anything like this. And what they do is they do high throughput experimentation in there, and they have sputtering chambers, so co-sputtering chambers. And what they do is that they deposit samples that have compositional gradients, like something like this represented by the color. And then like within one substrate, they have multiple samples with different conditions in there. And this allows them to process like a lot of data really, really fast. They work in chalcophosphide compounds, which is like a very like niche and really difficult set of materials to grow. But these are also thin films. And they have like plenty of cool stuff like built in their Oasis. So they've got something to track completely the synthesis workflow, where they like see like all these what has happened during the sputtering deposition, what was the like temperature ramping thing, when the copper source was on, tracking the gas flows in there and so on. And then they link this also to the starting materials. So they've got, for example, in NOMAD, an inventory of their targets, of the sputtering targets that they have in the lab with QR codes, and this links to the entries. So you can see how many runs have you done with every sputtering target and so on. And then they links to the thin film samples that they produce. And they track like mapping characterization, like EDX of the composition, like mapping of like XRD in the samples, and plenty of stuff that they need to have something to cross-correlate and so on. And there are other kind of different groups. This is from the Fritz Haber Institute in here, from the Max Planck. This is led by Lorenz Rettig, who is also a PI in FAIRmat. And then in there, they do multidimensional photoemission spectroscopy, and they use NOMAD in a different like context. So they have like a beamline, and they've got like a big apparatus. And what they have set up, their NOMAD installation, is to have the folders or the drivers where they collect the data directly from the instruments, mounted into NOMAD, so they can selectively like collect all these files and so on and process them. And they do like a lot of cloud-based analysis. They use a combination of Jupyter environments and notebooks with Igor Pro, which is a desktop tool. So for example, this in here that we are seeing It's just like Igor, as you would run it in the desktop, but in reality, it's running in Nomad. Okay, you cannot see perhaps the URL in there, but it's really running in the browser. And then they even try to bring it farther and standardize their analyzed data to distribute it more uniformly and so on. And then it's in solar cell research, and this is what it brings me to the workshop. So there's a lot of groups that they started to go through the pain already 1.5 years ago to try to get Nomad installed. And if you find it now complicated, you cannot imagine how it was 1.5 years ago. But what they have achieved now, many of them, is that they can completely track their sample history, all the processes in there, how they clean the substrates, how every layer gets deposited with a lot of control granularity. If you have a slow die coating process of your perovskite, they track the coating speed, the distance to the substrate, and everything in there for every layer. With different kind of level of details and so on, and then they build some applications to analyze the data at a scale, and this is what Edgar did, and he will show later on. And these are 3 main groups that are represented in here. So first is the HFB people, and I will actually take now the time to introduce some people. So we will have some talks from Edgar and Paolo that are sitting there behind. So yeah. Then also from Marburg University, there's Aaron sitting in front of here. So Aaron was one of the first brave master students to try to get his hands on with this. And then from KIT, we have Felix and Joshua in here that they also run an installation in there. And this brings me to the workshop. So I think the goals of the workshop is important. So this is a very heterogeneous crowd of people. So you might be in completely different levels. Perhaps you haven't opened a single line of Python code. So we try to design something that more or less works for everybody. But at some point you will need to segregate, and we will try to help you in different parts. So the main thing is to try to learn Nomad stuff in here. Of course, we want to learn from others what other people have built in there. But you can also use to inspire others. So I personally showed a couple of examples in here, but I'm very curious to learn what people want to do and so on, so that we can build something better suited for that. And we want to grow our community, especially in PV, so that we don't reinvent the wheel all the time, even if we keep on doing, but we can just try to help each other in this, share schemas, share pipelines, and so on. And yeah, let's just try to build something together in there that we can reuse. And especially something is become more independent in all the operations that they run Nomad. I think this is something that people attending the workshop ask us, how can we get a little bit of training or resources so that I can just spin up my own Nomad myself, I can maintain it and so on, without the babysitting of certain people that have been extremely helpful, and especially thinking of Michael Gote, who couldn't attend today. Yeah. So we are here. So I think the program, we set it up this way, but I think we will really necessarily need to be flexible because of the people attending the workshop. So now, just after this, Aaron will start with an example of whatever they are doing in Marburg. I'm very curious to hear. Then it will be Felix and Joshua. Then we will have some coffee break that I'm sure that it will be very welcome. And then it comes Edgar and Paolo. First, there will be a talk. I think it will be half an hour or something like this. And then in here, after the talk, there will be a end user hands-on session. I think since in here there are not enough plugs and so on, at this point is where we will be moving upstairs. So you will follow us, and then we will move to a different room in there, and we try to set up the seminar room in there so we can run the hands-on session in there. So everything that is in the left part, everything that happens until lunch, you should be able to follow, even if you don't know how to code or anything like this. The whole point is to try to learn something and get familiarized to how people do things. And then from the afternoon, from after lunch, then we will try to get a little bit hands-on. And then in there are many different entry points. There are people that run already NOMAD Oasis installations, people that they need to get started, and so on. For that, we will bring a lot of help. So Hampus is here to help. Lev is in there. He will also be able to help you. Yeah, David, if you want to help some people, just also more than welcome. And I think I will also get some other people from our group to help over. So just feel free to ask, and then we will drive you towards the right people. And also ask online if you have questions. And Yeah, and I think this whole thing in the right, it will be a continuation. We put some like time slots in there, but we will see how it goes, right? I think if somebody manages to get like an installation running already today, and they like do some parses and some search apps, I mean, this could be absolute like Nomad Guru thing. But if you just like get to learn something smaller about that, this is totally fine, and we just take it so. All right, so I introduced already the people of the workshop and some very generous funding agencies that allow us to help running this. So with this, I would take a few questions, if there are any.